Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of Slow Podcast, focusing on that which takes time to grow. I am Kevin, and this is my wife Esther. We're back.
And to remind you, this is a podcast channel of our conversation as husband and wife, partners, co-workers, and things that go on behind the scenes. Some of the things we talk about, some of the things that pop up, and I hope through our conversations we could create meaningfulness in your lives. Right? To think about life differently, to think about relationships differently, to think about goals, motivations differently. And today we wanted to talk about something that is that we hear a lot from people around us, from my clients. A lot of them struggle with relationships in life in general, right? Like friendships, co-worker, with parents, with their partners. And people always ask this question, why must I be the first to put in the effort? Or if I do this, what do I get in return, right? Are they going to change or not? Right? If I put in this effort, am I going to get this result? So that got us talking. And it was something that I think a lot of people struggle with. So when it comes to that, what are your thoughts on this?
When it comes to that, I think the underlying question at the back is this going to be transactional? Is this going to yield a result if I do this? Will I get the return of investment? And I think, as we were preparing for this podcast, I was just thinking, is it possible that everything in life is not transactional? I don't think it's possible. I mean, when I say everything in life, I specifically target relationship. When I talk about the both of us, is it true that none of our interaction is transactional? Maybe it's not true. Sometimes you do want to get things out of me, and I definitely have many times get something out of you. I don't think that transactional part is bad. But it is bad if it's only transactional. Because there are certain things in our lives are just relational. And when we talk about relational, it talks about a giving out of love, that it's okay if I don't get anything in return because I love you. And it's very abstract a concept, because then when do I stop? When do I think I've given too much? What if my partner don't reciprocate whatever I've done? And so when we come to a place like that, we then inevitably will come to a place, because my partner is emotionally unavailable. That's why there's no reaction, there's no response that reciprocate my action, and then cause me to overthink, like, am I expecting too much? Should I not expect? So they're all interlinked all together. But to love somebody to a point where it is the building of the relationship with nothing I have in mind in return, it's a mystery, and it's beautiful, whereby you are freed from what is it in it for me. There is a beauty in that we, maybe in life sometimes we don't talk about enough, to how one can freely love, freely give, and just end there.
It's hard because our society doesn't condition us that way.
That's true.
Especially right in the context of Asia, right? The other day you had a talk and you asked the audience, what is the most important thing to, an Asian, right? Specifically a Chinese. And everybody unanimously said money,
Yeah.
right? And when it touches money for an Asian, it's always transactional, right? What does my money give me? What does this payment give me? What does this investment give me? Right? So when it comes to that, when it comes to business relationships, right, it's usually transactional first, right? It's like, hey, I pay you for your services, you give me this. But I think if people were willing to invest in those relationships and turn that transactional relationship to a relational one, it might take risk, right? But I think it might be more rewarding in the long run because you build longevity and there's the trust when it's relational. Because if it's purely transactional, everybody is fighting for their own benefit. Right? And when it comes to a personal relationship, you're fighting for, hey, what do I get out of this? And I don't think people enter into like a romantic relationship wanting it to be transactional.
No.
Right? When you fall in love, you do anything for that partner. And it's always relational. You give without expecting anything in return, right? And it comes to a point where you start questioning, why am I always the one doing this? Right? How come you're not putting your effort? It doesn't feel fair, right? You should be doing this. So what is that turning point?
Okay, let's track.
This is a tough.
No. Let's track back a little bit. If I have been giving so much to my partner, the question is it really possible that my partner don't do anything back in return? If you ask me, and our partner is a human being, I don't actually believe that that's possible. That means I cannot just keep giving and loving you, and yet you don't give me any response. I think now that we talk about this, I think the problem lies in maybe how our partner respond to us was not what we were expecting them to do. So that means I have an expectation. When I'm doing this for you, I wish you could do this for me. So when your response is you're doing something else for me, I think you've done nothing for me. I think that's more true, because it is quite impossible to love someone, to give somebody so much, yet your partner doesn't reciprocate at all. Like, how is that possible? Even the wall will bounce back your own voice and you will at least hear yourself, right? So maybe perhaps it's because we are not getting what we are hoping to get. Now that changes the equation. Now we have to ask ourselves the motive of our loving, the motive of our giving. Yeah, the motive is not always bad and it's not always selfish, just because I would love to be loved this way. So I guess it becomes transactional when there's no clear understanding. It becomes transactional when there's no proper communication. It becomes transactional when we don't actually understand how our partner wants to be loved, and we actually don't have the courage to tell our partner how we would like to be loved. So then everything became transactional. But it's actually not. I don't know. Have you met a client that genuinely the husband or the wife has loved the partner so much, the partner can do nothing? I don't think that's possible.
Usually when they get to that place, maybe one partner was hurt by something and failed to speak out, right? So they harbor that resentment, and the other partner keeps loving, trying to make things work, but this other partner has built a wall,
Yeah. So
Right?
now it's the communication, right? Like we're at war, and the war is invisible. So this other partner didn't know, just keep loving, and now feeling that the other partner is not responding because there's a communication problem. Something was wrong before that. So, and I think when we sometimes simply, well, not simply, but sometimes when we use the word transactional, it's actually far deeper than I'm giving you this so that you can give me that. You know, because there's longing, there's desire on the inside of us.
So if we were to just look at it in a broader manner, of course relationship is relational, right? So love can be unconditional, but the relationship cannot, because the relationship comes with conditions, right? Like fidelity, right? Like meeting expectations, communication, nurturing love, like all these kind of things. That sets like the bare minimum for a relationship to function, right? If the bare minimums are done right, and you exceed beyond the bare minimum, I think that relationship can thrive.
Yep.
But most people is so focused on seeing what's not there, and some can't even meet the bare minimum, right? I think that's when relationship becomes transactional, because that person is getting nothing, right? And relationship needs certain conditions
Yep.
for it to exist. Otherwise, why get into a relationship?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If you miss our conversation on sleeping in the same bed,
Yeah.
or not sleeping in the same bed, personal space, make sure you tune in to that episode,
Yeah.
because it's an interesting conversation that we had on this. But back to this, whether relationship can be transactional, I think it is the conditions that we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The bare minimum conditions have to be there,
Yeah.
and that's where it will thrive.
Yeah. I guess it needs that proper environment in order for that relationship to really understand. And it's not selfish, it's just it need that environment, that space to grow.
And if that person is only looking at bare minimums, or like, what do I get out of this, they're not right for a relationship.
Nope.
Right? So don't start, or don't even get into that place.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? If you want a thriving relationship, you want to be that partner who's willing to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
Right? When both persons are ready to do that, it makes things so much easier.
I think this idea of bare minimum being elevated to such a high position in life is just distressing to me, because when was ever a bare minimum thing that has been done by humankind that actually memorable or remembered in posterity, that this is a bare minimum project, let's celebrate it, don't exist. Human beings celebrate sacrifice, how we have given our best shot, how people have laid down their lives for their country, how people have gone the extra mile to take care of their family, or whatever cause that they may be believing in. So to actually hear someone say, what is the bare minimum that I need in order to keep this relationship going? Wow, I think that relationship is bad, and it's going to, like, can you imagine, like, we are just casual in the last 20 years, just casual when it comes to the way we talk to each other, like no hard feelings, okay, I just say whatever I want, casual in the way we raise our kids, casual in a way we have our meals, and casual in the way we treat each other, and just bare minimum, as long as I don't get you upset or I don't get on the wrong side of the fence, and that's fine. That's not fine. I think we have to call that as not fine. We have to call that as not to be tolerated, not to be celebrated. Like, why just bare minimum. The bare minimum is set so that we should thrive, because if we don't do this, nothing else will happen. We should just go all the more. So, yeah, I don't like to be a bare minimum kind of a person.
And interestingly, if you want to enter the top universities in the world, they would tell you the requirements. Right? Requirements are like bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at those bare minimums,
Straight
they're
A's.
actually very high standards.
Yeah.
Straight A's, right? You gotta be this. You gotta pass this. You gotta. So, I guess if we all strive to give ourselves a very high standard, right, or live a very high standard, whether at work or your business or your friendships, I think that makes relationships more meaningful.
Yep. More beautiful too, right? More enjoyable. I really like what you say. If the bare minimum is straight A's.
Right. Because if you look at the jobs, right, usually, lower level employment, when they talk about bare minimum, the people are just trying to see, okay, what's the lowest, right? But going to management level or CEOs, what they require, if you look at those requirements, they are very high standards.
Yeah.
And right, that's why they do well. That's why they could perform. They could bring in the income and the performance for the company.
Yeah. So we have to ask ourselves whether our marriage, is it a entry-level worker's job, or is it a high-level management thing? Because the return of investment, the joy, the love that we get to live is far beyond what money can put a tag on.
And if you live like that, it's no longer transactional, because you're thinking beyond just transactional.
Yeah,
You'll be occupied with the vision, right?
Yeah.
With the future, with goals.
Yeah.
And all these things are the bare minimum for a thriving and healthy partnership or relationship.
That's true. Well, let's leave it at that. If we talk about bare minimum, let's not just talk about 3 C's, but let's talk about a bare minimum in a healthy relationship is a straight A kind of an approach towards it. And I think both parties will enjoy it even more and find it more rewarding. Right?
Yep.
Cool. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Slow Podcast. Do remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend, and stay tuned, because we will come up with more husband and wives chat. Take care now. Bye.